All right, hey y'all, good morning. Let me find a spot where the sun's not blazing in the phone. It's your girl Aisha, otherwise known as Miss Champagne. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about growing squash in Florida. I'm here in my chicken garden. Looking at my three sisters planting method here. I've got some Seminole pumpkin, which is a type of squash that is native to the southern region. I'm not sure if it's native to Florida, but at least native to the southern regions. Growing squash in Florida was probably one of my biggest challenges, is still one of my biggest challenges. Anything in the squash family is a struggle. So you want to pick varieties that can handle our heat and humidity. You have a lot of things that can impact you growing squash. First thing that I always struggle with, let's move these spider webs, is sorry, it's a lot of spider webs in the garden. Spiders are good for the garden, so I try not to disturb their webs when I can. But I want to talk about powdery mildew. So let me come through. All right, so this that you see, hold on, another spider web. There we go. Is powdery mildew. That white substance on the top of the leaves is powdery mildew. Now that's different from, you'll see some patterns of the leaves naturally have a white veining. That is not powdery mildew. But this substance that is on that leaf is powdery mildew. That's due to just a lot of humidity. We're starting to really heat up. We're in April. So summer is approaching very quickly for us here in the South. I am in zone 10A. It is practically here. So it makes growing a lot of squash very challenging. This is your typical summer squash. There's a zucchini and the patty pan variety. It suffers from powdery mildew very quickly. I try to get it planted by January so it can be out by February and hopefully producing by March. Now I've had a few harvested from the zucchini. Unfortunately, when I was planting, I only had one survive of each variety. You typically want at least two, because there's always one that's producing just male flowers or just female flowers. That way it can cross-pollinate each other. But when you only have one of each variety, it was very hard to time when your male blossoms and your female blossoms were open to be pollinated so that you can get some fruit. Another issue with squash is the squash bug. There's a squash vine borer that will lay an egg on the stem, and when it hatches, the larva will burrow itself inside of the stem and eventually kill the plant, basically sucking out all the nutrients. And then there's a squash bug that just lays eggs on the underside of the leaves. Those larvae hatch and will eat your plants alive. Trying to see if I can see. So you have to be out here diligently checking on the underside of the leaves. Now there are certain varieties like these summer squash that are more prone to it. So I'll more than likely just be pulling these up. They're not really serving a purpose. They're not producing anymore. Like a lot of these blossoms weren't pollinated, so they're dying off and the whole plant is starting to suffer. Now this is another type of squash. This is tromboncino. It's a little bit hardier than your summer squash. It's kind of a hybrid. It can be eaten as a summer squash when it's you know, nice and light green and in its tender state, it will eventually go dark green and then yellow. When it's yellow, it can be harvested and kept like a winter squash, like your butternuts and stuff like that. This is supposed to be a little more resistant to the powdery mildew. I do see some on the leaves, but overall, the health of the plant looks pretty good. So I'm going to come in and remove the leaves that are suffering, which is why I want to get these plants out, because powdery mildew will spread to anything in the squash family. This includes your cucumbers and watermelons, honeydews, any of those melons. Now earlier this week, I was picking off squash eggs. Let's see if I can see any. It's usually a cluster. There goes some. All right, let's get a good angle here. So if you can see this cluster of eggs, these are squash eggs. So I just try to squish them when I see them. If it's a lot, I will just tear off the whole leaf and throw it to my chickens. That is a squash bug. Different from the leaf-footed bugs because their legs are skinny. The leaf-footed bugs have little flat parts on their legs that look like leaves, which is why they're called leaf-footed bugs. So I'm going to come back with my snippers, and they're a little big, so crushing them with my fingers feels weird, but I will just snip them. You can't really spray. They have a hard outer shell, so nothing that you spray is really going to work. And I don't use chemicals in my garden. I will use neem oil on certain occasions, but like only when I see spider mite, because that is an infestation that you don't want in your garden. All right, so over here is my lemon cucumber. The bottom leaves are really starting to struggle with the powdery mildew. It is producing, so I've been leaving it. The upper leaves don't look too bad, but it's probably not going to last that much longer. Cucumbers, this really isn't the season. Like after April, it's really not going to produce. So this lemon cucumber variety, I will replant in the fall to see if it does better. There's Asian varieties of cucumbers. Look how big and pretty these pumpkin flowers are. I haven't seen any pumpkin fruit. I'm at flowers, just the males. And the male flowers will only have the stem and the flower. Your female flower will have the actual fruit attached to the flower. I don't have a good example to show you. Let me look on the tromboncino. Here we go. So those flowers have already been spent, but this is a baby tromboncino. Hopefully it's been pollinated. I lost one of them already. I've harvested 2 of them very young and ate those. They're okay. It's very mild in flavor. So I want to let this one get to the yellow stage because they say it tastes like butternut squash, which I actually like, and see how I like it then. So variety is everything. And so far this Seminole pumpkin is taking over this whole garden. So I may have to snip off some of these different leaders and only just keep a few. I don't need all of these. I'm not gonna eat that much pumpkin, so. These are more Seminole pumpkin vines. And this is not powdery mildew. Again, this is just the natural veining. My zinnias are popping through. I think one of them was probably buried. There's supposed to be one in between each sunflower. But the sunflowers are looking so pretty. Look at them all. But let's talk about another variety. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. I do have some melons growing over in the U garden. This is my Vigo raised bed. It's in the shape of a U. I've got some powdery melon. It's kind of like a honeydew. I do need to go through and do some pest management. When you start seeing these little droplets, this is caterpillar poop. So there is a worm on here somewhere. And there it is. You see him hiding in there? So we're just gonna squish him. Just squish the leaf. It's good to do this first thing in the morning when they're still hiding up underneath the leaves, and just squish the leaf. So lots of pest management. Again, it is mating season. All the bugs have woken up. They're mating, they're laying all their eggs. These eggs are going to hatch into very hungry caterpillars and worms. I do have some baby powdery melons that have been pollinated. There's just that one so far. Oh, I've got two back there. Last year they grew well, but by the time it was ready to harvest, something came and ate a hole in it. So hopefully that doesn't happen this year. And then over here I have another variety of cucumber. It's like a long variety. Not your pickling the cucumber, but it has a very hard skin, which will make it hard for what is that? The pickle beetle or pickle worm. It's like a cucumber beetle. It looks like a ladybug but yellow, and it lays the eggs on the fruit and on the underside of the leaves, and they hatch and they will burrow into your cucumbers, and you'll see little holes all in it. That's from the cucumber beetle, and they call it like the pickle worm as well. It's like a green worm that's spotted. But I will be transplanting. This is my crimson watermelon. Watermelon does pretty well. Once it gets established, you will have to like help it through this April and May season when all of the pests are waking up and laying all of their larvae. So this checking your plants is going to be a daily thing, because all it takes is a few nights for these little worms to completely take out a whole plant. But this one's not suffering from any powdery mildew, so I like it that I can grow it in this season. The other variety I'll just plant in the fall, but this variety I'll plant again. I can't remember the name of it. I thought I left a little label down here, but I'll have to look back in my past videos to see which variety this is. Unfortunately, it took so long for these, that's a female flower, as you can see the baby fruit is attached, to start producing female flowers. This is another female flower. So I thought about getting, this is another female flower, a variety with that only produces female flowers, but then I feel like that's unnatural. Like they're supposed to have male and female parts. And then this is my honey rock golden watermelon. Saved my seeds from last year. It is growing well. Took a while to take off. It likes warmer weather, so we were having some cool nights. But now it's starting to take off and vine out of the bed, which is what I intended. And my crimson, I'm going to plant one here so it can vine out of the bed this way. and then I'll plant some others kind of scattered throughout the food forest. Now you can pollinate your anything in the squash family. You simply look for a male flower, okay? Just has the flower attached to it. I'm gonna take and remove the petals. I have to do this with 2 hands, so that's why you can't see me. There we go. So that you just have the stamen attached, which is the center of the male flower. And there's a center of the female flower that you're going to rub the parts together. Now normally your bees and butterflies and, you know, wasps, other things that like the pollen will do this for you. But if you don't have a lot of flowers, or it's early in the season and there's not a lot of bees yet, then you may have to do this step to make sure that you're getting fruit. And that is pretty much it. So make sure you pick the right variety. Pest management is important. If you start seeing powdery mildew, take out those plants. You can treat powdery mildew with like a peroxide solution where you can just spray on your plants, but I don't feel like doing all that, so I'm gonna just take it out. But yeah, those are my tips about growing squash and cucumbers, anything in the cucurbit family in Florida, Central Florida. I'm in Zone 10A again. Up north, you may not have the same issues. It's probably easier to grow a lot of these varieties up north. Down in Florida, it's a special beast. So if you have a variety that does really well, take note, keep using that variety. Save your seeds. They'll be more adaptable to your microclimate that's in your yard. These sunflowers are just so pretty. And just keep that going. It takes practice. You can only plant them, you know, you start your seeds in January, keep them covered because they need a little warmth and humidity to germinate. Get them out in the ground in February, or if you direct sow them, then you have to wait till March where temperatures are warmer in the soil. But I transplant mine when they're pretty young. So like you can see this, it's got probably 3 or 4 true leaves, which this is a true leaf. These are the seedling leaves. So it's got 1, 2, 3 and a half. That's pretty much when you want to get these transplanted. Any bigger than that, then it's not really going to like the transplant stage, and it's going to go into shock and it may not recover. So start them early January so you can get them out by February, so that they can produce by March, April, because after April they're pretty much going to be done, except for your watermelons. Those should keep going. Your watermelons, the Seminole pumpkin, if I had butternut squash, those probably would have been going, but the Seminole pumpkin, I'm going to keep that in my garden. Last year did not do well. I direct sowed it in March, and by the time it was coming up in April, it was, you know, very young, and the pest just took it out very easily. So getting it established early definitely helps, because it's massive. It's taken over very quickly. Then you can plant them again. I'll be starting, and you can direct sow these because the soil will be nice and hot. September, you can get them back in the ground. Now again, our pest pressure is still high, and it's hot, so you'll want to put it somewhere where it can get some afternoon and evening shade. And then just let it grow, and it'll do well until we have, you know, our first freeze, which depending on the winter, we may not have until late December, maybe early January, just depending. I've got a lot of melons coming. These are so pretty. All right, that's it for today. Bye, guys.